Do you want to learn to go from this to this? Well, what if I said that jumping your bike is something that you already know how to do? So strap on your helmets, put on your flat pedals, and be careful. Now that I'm living here in Bentonville, I've been having such a blast hitting all the jumps here, and I really wanted to share some knowledge of how to jump because, well, I see a lot of people doing it incorrectly. They're missing one thing, actually jumping. Now, before we go hitting the biggest jumps that there are, let's talk about some fundamentals. Oh, and get yourself a good quality helmet, something with actual science and testing like this 6D helmet with double foam layers. So this is a jump, and the start of the jump is called many things, like an up ramp, takeoff, but for this video, I'm gonna be calling it a lip. And then of course, you have your landing. And to actually jump, it comes down to some very basic body mechanics to get vertical lift. But the funny thing is, jumping a bike and jumping on the ground are extremely similar. When we do a jump squat on the ground, we get into a squat and explode our hips forward and push off your toes. And you might be rolling your eyes right now, and I get it. They are very basic body mechanics. So let's apply them to the bike. I'm coming up to the lip, I'm getting into a squatted position, and right at the top of the lip, I'm exploding my hips and extending my toes. But there's a few other things to understand. In the bad examples from earlier, neither are doing jumping motions. The first example is more like being a passenger along for the ride. And if you do that, I'm not mad at you, but I'm telling you that eventually you will crash from getting bucked over the bars or from getting a weird kick off the lip. Then on the second bad example, the rider has learned to get into a squatted position, but then stays in the squat and just rides off the lip. Take away their bike and they're just waiting to catch air. The only vertical lift they'll get is from speed and the slope of the lip. And they're gonna have a hard time clearing jumps. One big downfall of mountain bikes when it comes to jumping is the suspension. The shocks don't know the difference between a jump and a bump. The shock's only job is to compress and extend, so going up to a jump, the suspension just wants to unload and push back, and that's when you see people getting bucked over the bars. So to compensate and to leverage the suspension, we must preload our suspension just before the takeoff of the lip. Remember, we are in control of the bike and we dictate what the bike will do. So just before the transition starts is where I would get into my squatted preload position. And you have to be really active about really compressing that suspension. Now instead of your suspension wanting to unload and buck you, you're leveraging it to jump even higher and further. Think of it like a trampoline. So let's tie it all together. I'm approaching the lip, and just before I preload my suspension and squat down, then at the top of the lip, I'm exploding my hips and extending my toes, just like we did on the ground. And don't miss the toe part, it's really super important. If I don't extend my toes when I'm leaving the ground, well, I can't get that high and it kind of hurts. It's just not right. So get into the squat position with your hips back and explode through your toes, and you've just taken flight. That's what this second bad example was missing. The squat preload was there, but there was no exploding the hips through the toes. But notice that I haven't mentioned anything about my arms. If we go back to jumping off the bike, your arms will build momentum, but they don't really do much else. On the bike, we already have momentum from pedaling or going downhill, so when I'm jumping, I'm not really using my arms for anything more than just holding the front wheel straight and keeping the bike stable. But more on that in a minute. So now that we understand what it means to truly jump, let's talk about some variables, speed and distance. And, well, these things are up to your judgment. Most jumps, you can see the landing and you can feel your speed, so you're gonna have to make the judgment call of how hard you wanna jump and pop the lip. Sometimes I'm just going too slow, or it's a really long jump, so I pop as hard as I can to get as high as possible. And only in this instance, I'm pulling up the bars to get more lift. Almost like a bunny hop. But if I'm going pretty fast for the jump, or the jump is small, I won't need to do a full-on jumping motion on the bike. Instead, I'll keep my body pretty neutral, but over any and every jump, I'm always gonna be compressing the suspension just a little bit and doing a little blip of my toes off the lip, just to prevent the bike from kicking me a weird way or bucking me over the bars. I'm in control of the bike and I do not let it control me. Now, when it comes to big jumps, the motions are pretty much the same. You'll be going a lot faster and maybe we'll need to get into a squat much earlier, but hey, Start with the things I taught you on some small, predictable jumps, and you'll work your way up from there once you're comfortable. Once you're in the air, well, this is where you develop your own style, your own personal expression. There's no set of rules of what to do when you're airborne, but the best thing to do when you're learning is to get back into a neutral body position. If you've popped the lip correctly, there's really nothing magical to do in the air. You already did all the work on the lip. Getting into a neutral body position is pretty much done by just rolling your wrist forward and scooping your feet with your pedals. This will also help you clear bigger jumps, and from there, you just relax and prepare for the landing. So practice what you've learned here, but be really careful. And if this video helped you or you have a question, comment down below. I'm also starting up skills clinics here in Bentonville, so check the link in the description if you want to sign up. And as for variations of jumping like throwing style, boosting, speed jumping, check out this video here.